It means we're live. Some Casual Takes, episode 78, hosted by your boy. Literally can't raise his shoulder. I was about to do if I hurt my shoulder. Here to casually talk sports, Stephen Pepper. This episode is brought to you by no one. Tuesday episode. Apologies for no Monday episode. Been traveling back. I'm back home now. As you can see, I'm back home for Thanksgiving break. So this is where the next couple of episodes are going to be. I was traveling, getting some last minute homework assignments done for a break. So I can have a chill break and possibly provide more episodes. So that's where I was. Now I'm home. So I also told you guys on TikTok, that's why you guys got to follow. If you ever want to if you don't feel like, if you feel like I'm missing a show, I always post an update. I don't leave you guys dry. Thank you guys though, who, tune in every week, but we have a decent show today, not particularly long, because I want to, come back and give you guys some more episodes. Lakers play tonight, possible Wednesday show, Friday show. We're going to talk about all those Thanksgiving games. So it's going to be a really, really fun Thanksgiving break for us here at Some Casual Takes. Talking about, of course, Monday Night Football, Eagles versus Chiefs. Steelers offensive coordinator just got fired this morning. And I also want to talk about the Sunday Night Football game too, because, Sunday Night Football is prime time. It's a big game that I didn't get to talk about. So let's start with the Eagles versus the Chiefs. And I'm going to save the Eagles for the Friday show because they also play on a short turnaround on Thanksgiving. So I want to save believe they play the Commanders. I want to save the Eagles for Friday. So I want to focus on the Kansas City Chiefs for this show. And the Chiefs, they just lost last night 21-17 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, my thing with the Chiefs is I think they got cute at the deadline. I think what we saw last night was a team that got cute at the deadline and they finally paid for it. So what I mean by what I think they got cute at the deadline is I think the Kansas City Chiefs wanted to flex on the rest of the league. They have Mahomes. They have Kelsey. They have Andy Reid. They have an elite defense. They were like 7-1, 7-2 before the trade deadline. 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. 1 last Super Bowl as the reigning champs without a real number one wide receiver. I think the Chiefs didn't want to pay a price on a wide receiver at the deadline and just, thought that what they had was good and wanted to flex for the rest of the league, that they can still win the Super Bowl with what they have. And what we saw last night is that issue at receiver is clear, and it costed them against the Eagles. And I said at the deadline, remember we did a little deadline preview, I said at the deadline that this Chiefs team absolutely needs a wide receiver. Why don't they go get a wide receiver? It's been a problem all year. It wasn't a problem last night. This is nothing new for the Chiefs. They've had a wide receiver hole all year. And there was a couple wide receivers on the market. Now, of course, Davante Adams. Like getting Davante Adams would have been hard. At the time of the deadline, he was frustrated. The Raiders were losing. No way the Raiders would have given the Chiefs, that would have been a league ender if they would have got Davante Adams. But if you're talking about like a B wide receiver, like a Jerry Jeudy or someone else in the market who's just a B, then I'm taking Kansas City over every single team in the NFL to win the Super Bowl because they have everything else. Mahomes, Kelsey, experience, Andy Reid, elite defense, one of the best defenses in the league now. They just have a B, dependable hand wide receiver outside of Kelsey. I'm picking this over any other team in the league. 49ers, Eagles, they have less holes than the Chiefs, but just with a B wide receiver, we saw last year with just a B wide receiver, the Chiefs can win the Super Bowl. They don't have a B wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster, I know everyone is, talking about his impact. I know it sounds a little crazy because Juju Smith-Schuster is a wide receiver too, but he was so impactful for this Chiefs team. I mean, I'm going to remind you guys, on that key third down in the Super Bowl late, who did the Chiefs throw to? Not Kelsey, not Tooney, not Sky Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster. They don't have a dependable wide receiver anymore. I laugh at this every single time. When I think about it, I laugh at this every single time. The Chiefs really thought that getting MVS at the deadline was like Thanos collecting the last Infinity Stone, but it was more like getting a crystal from a 50-cent gumball machine at a restaurant. And we saw it last night. I mean, MVS dropped a booty butt naked wide open game-winning touchdown. That's exactly what the Chiefs get for not getting a real wide receiver at the deadline. Like, the Chiefs have an obvious wide receiver problem. League leading 26 drops. Their second half problems. The Chiefs' biggest issue this season has been their inability to run offense in the second half. Their second half problems are 100% on the receivers. First half, like the disparity between this team in the first half and second half is so strange. I've never seen a team play like this in the second half. In the first half, they look like the Kansas City Chiefs. On script, Mahomes, I don't even care. Like in the first half, they could have a JV high school. Oh, sorry. For some reason, something came up on my computer. I apologize. But like I was saying, the Chiefs could have like a JV wide receiver in high school go out there in the first half, and Mahomes could make it happen. But in the second half, off script, teams double team Kelsey. This offense can't get any rhythm going. It's thanks to the wide receivers being unable to either get open off script or catch a pass when they are open. I mean, look at the disparity in the first and second half. The first half, like I said, they look like the Kansas City Chiefs. They look like they have actual wide receivers. Second in points per game, tied for third in total touchdowns, second in yards per game, second in yards per play. That's in the first half. Mirrored to the second half, last in points per game, tied for last in total touchdowns, 26 in total yards per game, and 28th in yards per play. The Chiefs have now been shut out in the second half 3 straight games. 3 straight games. So the Chiefs' formula this season is look like the Kansas City Chiefs in the first half, put up a lot of points, have Mahomes try to make, and then in the second half, Mahomes just makes a couple plays, and that defense plays so elite to the very end where they can hold out and win games. That's just not sustainable against real teams. Last night reminded me of their opener against the Detroit Lions, where, you know, it kind of felt like early on the Chiefs controlled the game. The Chiefs in the first half, especially the first quarter, they look like the Kansas City Chiefs, but in the second half, the wide receivers become a real issue, and then their opponent pulls away. I mean, against the Lions, the big decider in the loss was Kadarius Toney had 3 huge drops. He had a touchdown drop, then he had a drop on a wide open pass that went through his hands and became a pick 6, which ultimately decided the game. And then against Denver, they got shut out in the second half. That was mostly due towards turnovers, but Mahomes had no wide receiver to throw to in that game. Against Miami, let's be honest, they should have lost to the Dolphins. I criticize the Dolphins for not being able to beat a real team. They should have lost to the Dolphins. They are a classic Tua moment away from losing in Germany. Tua had the worst third and fourth down combination I've ever seen by a quarterback ever. Tua hits that wide open receiver on third down. Game's over. Chiefs have another loss. And then last night, they couldn't win. They couldn't put up a point in the second half. Receivers couldn't get open, and they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. They can get away with against the Raiders, get away with against the Chargers, just not against these actual teams. Now, today, the Chiefs are no longer the number 1 seed because of this additional loss. Now, I am not saying that the Chiefs are on the outside in looking at the Super Bowl bubble. I would not be surprised at all if the Chiefs are playing in February. I mean, come on. Mahomes, 5 years of experience, Travis Kelce, one of the best defenses in the league, Andy Reid. They can somehow make it work. If they can somehow make it work, I wouldn't be surprised. But only the number 1 seed gets a bye. This isn't 2017 anymore. The 2 seed, which the Chiefs currently are going to be projected to at the end of the season, 2 seed doesn't get a bye anymore. The Kansas City Chiefs absolutely need a bye. Again, I'm not saying the Chiefs can't make a Super Bowl run, but the Chiefs would much rather have a bye because the difference between the 1 and 2 seed is an additional game in the playoffs. The Chiefs do not want the additional game because an additional game in a tough AFC further increases the chances that they run into a game just like they had against Philadelphia. And if the Chiefs play a game like that in the playoffs, they're not going to win because their receivers aren't going to help. The AFC has also ran through Arrowhead as well these last couple of games. If they're the 2 seed, they also won't have the home field advantage. I'm looking at the Chiefs game season schedule going forward. They got the Raiders next week. That's a bye week, whatever. They also have Jordan Love, prime time. They do have the Bills. The Bills are going to be tough. The Bills look decent. If Josh Allen, new OC, can clean game, they can beat Kansas City. They don't have that many tough games left. That's also thanks to Burrow getting hurt. That was supposed to be that New Year's Eve classic. Burrow got hurt, and they always own the Chargers. They really only have one tough game yet left. They got the they got the Raiders twice, and then they got like the Patriots and the Packers. I mean, they can still are in line for the 1 seed, especially Baltimore drops a game or two. They're in the 3-way tie right now with Jacksonville and Miami for the 2nd seed, the Chiefs being, and they've already beaten the Dolphins in Jacksonville. But that Bills game, I can't wait to talk about that because that could be the deciding factor if the Chiefs are the 1 or 3 or 4th seed. It could very well be. But the Chiefs definitely have a wide receiver problem. But let's go now into the story out of Pittsburgh that broke this morning when I was prepping for the show. Sorry for a late show, by the way. I had some stuff to do in the morning. Like I said, traveling back home. I had to go get my car from the shop. It was a pretty long day before I get to fire up. But coming out of Pittsburgh today, You know, like LeBron said when he won that championship, it's about damn time. They finally fired Matt Canada. Wow. I mean, this is the first time. This is crazy coming out of Pittsburgh, by the way, because this is the first time the Steelers ever placed a head coach or coordinator mid-season since 1941. Like my grandparents weren't even born in 1941. That was the last time the Steelers replaced a head coach or coordinator mid-season. This was the correct fire. Like about time. It's like you don't need, like I love to say, you don't need a master's degree to figure this one out. The Steelers obviously had a head offense coordinator problem. Matt Canada had to go. That's his offense. This should have been made in like week 6 or 7. Like the entire city of Pittsburgh. I saw a video where Pittsburgh fans are literally at the Capitol protesting, trying to say fire Matt Canada. My brother's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I was talking to him playing Fortnite last night. He was saying Matt Canada absolutely has to go. He hates their offense. I have a lot of friends from Pittsburgh. They're Steelers fans. They all hate Matt Canada. Everyone in that entire city and across the world, because they have global fans, hates Matt Canada. He had to go. I'm not saying they hate Matt Canada as a person. Matt Canada is probably a good guy, but as an offensive coordinator, because he's been the OC of one of the worst offenses in the league. I talked about Ken Dorsey. If your offense is struggling, the offensive coordinator, you're the first one to go because, you're drawing these plays up. I mean, his offense, 28th in points per game, 31st in yards per game, 16th in rush yards per game. Not a good offense. They're somehow 6-4. I don't know. Definitely not because of the offense. They haven't outgained an opponent all season. They played 10 games. How the hell have you haven't gained one opponent all season? You're the offensive coordinator. That's kind of on you, bro. Like the play calling hasn't been good for Matt Canada all year. I don't know what the Steelers' identity is offense. I don't know what kind of concepts they love. I don't know what works offensively for the Steelers. I mean, it's not like they don't have bad talent. They have decent guys. They have decent receivers, decent backs. Like what works for them offensively? They go 3 and out. Half of their offensive time, half the time they have the ball, they go 3 and out. I also don't like the management of Jalen. I'm going to talk about Jalen Warren for a little second. I also don't like the management of Jalen Warren. Looks like their star young running back in the making. This team, although they moved, it took them so long enough. See, the Steelers are just so long in making decisions. They finally moved Najee to the bench, which they should have because it's now clear that Warren's better. But Najee still got more carries. I mean, the Steelers average 6.6 yards per carry, but if you take away Jalen Warren's production, they average like 2 yards a carry. Najee had 3 more carries, but like 4 yards less per carry. It's clear that Jalen Warren is the more explosive back. In between, outside the tackles, doesn't matter. He's the more explosive back in the passing game and the receiving game. He needs the more workload. Hopefully, the new interim offensive coordinator works on that. Like, if you were to take out the Warren touchdown yesterday, that was probably one of the worst offensive performances I've seen all year. Like, if the Steelers somehow would have won that game, it would have been so funny. If they would have done a typical Steelers thing, which was play bad offense and then have a good drive in the fourth quarter, would Ken have been fired? I think the Steelers fans should be, although it doesn't look good, you're losing at 6-4. Playoff chances go down a little bit. If you win that game, Ken is still going to be your offensive coordinator. Now, I want to say this, because I'm going to keep my eye on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're probably going to revisit the Steelers on the Monday show because I want to see how they play. I think they play Cincinnati. Again, they're also playing another backup quarterback. Nice layup for the Steelers. But we're going to come back and revisit this because although I believe Canada needed to get fired, let's not let Kenny Pickett off the hook. Like, Kenny Pickett is not good. Like, let's not let him off the hook. I know in the preseason, I was like, oh, Kenny Pickett is slinging it, man. He's improving. I thought I saw improvement in the preseason. I saw the deep ball. I saw some better passes. I saw better accuracy. I saw less turnovers. Kenny Pickett just hasn't improved. And he's also regressed, by the way, if you check his weeks 1 through 4, and now his numbers these last couple weeks, he's also playing worse. I mean, the Steelers are 31st in passing yards per game. Pickett in passing total yards is 25th in the league. Like, they're a worse passing yards per game team than teams like the Browns, Josh Dobbs' Cardinals. They're on the same level as like the Jets with Zach Wilson and Tommy DeVito's New York Giants. Like, they're on the same level of teams that just haven't had a quarterback all year. Teams with backup quarterbacks. And then Pickett's also 28th in QBR, 35.7. Is that acceptable quarterback play? Speaking of Tommy DeVito has had more multiple touchdown passing games than Kenny Pickett. Tommy DeVito's played like 3 games this year. How does he have more multi-touchdown pass games than Kenny Pickett? See, like, I know, I also, like I said, I think coach should have been fired. When your coach and your unit isn't playing well, and it's clear that a lot of it's on your play calling, your decision making. You got to go. Same with Dorsey. But also at the end of the day, you got to be a little fair to these coaches because although they are calling the plays, they're not the one executing the plays. Canada's not under center, just like what I said about Ken Dorsey yesterday on last show. Dorsey's not under center. Canada's not under center. Like, yes, he drew up the plays, but if Kenny Pickett is like physically incapable of passing the ball to the guys that he wants to give it to, then how is it also just entirely all on Matt Canada? Like, the Steelers are 6-4. Again, somehow they're winning games despite Pickett, not because of him. If you're an NFL quarterback, NFL quarterbacks have the most influences on wins and losses, a team's win and loss column. If your team is winning despite you, that says something about you. Like Pickett against the Browns was horrible. Listen, I watch a ton of Steelers, a ton of Browns, a ton of AFC North matchups coming. I live in Ohio, so we always get the AFC North. So I watch this game. Pickett was horrible, man. He missed so many throws, so many just like, what? Like, how do you miss those type throws? Against the Browns, Pickett 15-28, 106? You were a first-round quarterback. You threw 106 yards in a game? Albeit the Browns are playing at a historic level defense right now, but 106? I saw Gardner Minshew do decent against this defense and put a couple touchdowns on the board. The defense has been so great that the Steelers' offensive formula has just been getting away with. Kenny Pickett is bad in the first three quarters, looks like a bust in the first three quarters, but then puts together like one or two good drives in the fourth quarter to either win the game or pull away from it. That's because the defense has been so great. And the defense was great last night. Again, I mean, albeit they were playing Dorian Thompson-Robinson, but the Browns still have some decent weapons. Kenny Pickett had a run game, had Warren go for 100 yards and a long touchdown, had a defense holding DTR to 13 points. And Kenny Pickett still lost. DTR sort of outplayed him. And Kenny Pickett, right on cue, first three quarters was horrible. This is actually the worst first three quarters I've ever seen. 8 of 16 for 53 yards through first three quarters. The NFL level quarterback, 53 yards. Again, Pickens, Dees. Johnson, Dees. Tight ends, Dees. Running backs out of the backfield, Dees. 53 yards first three quarters. Eight bad incompletions. And then in the fourth quarter, typical Kenny Pickett, bad first three quarters, time to go win the game on a final drive. He couldn't win it. Kenny Pickett probably just got Matt Canada fired. He had 3 straight incompletions on that final drive, which early in the season, the reason why the Steelers have so many wins is because Pickett actually goes on that final drive, wins the game. He has so many comeback wins in his career already, but he couldn't pull it off against the Browns. Like the Steelers played 1970 football, it seems like, run the ball. Quarterback's not the biggest factor in the world. Defense, low scoring. Is that on Canada? Or is it really on Pickett? I don't know. We're going to revisit this on the Monday show. We're going to watch the Steelers. If Kenny Pickett gets outplayed by Jake Browning, if you're a Steelers fan, probably don't want to have your notifications on that day because I'm going to rip Kenny Pickett. Okay, let's go to the Vikings-Browns to wrap up the show. The Lakers play tonight. If LeBron has another masterclass and they go undefeated, by the way, in the in-season tournament, I might fire up a show. We'll see. I also want to get involved more on TikTok Live and do some more TikTok Lives. I kind of miss going on there. But the Denver Broncos, Sunday Night Football, won 21-20 over Josh Dobbs' Minnesota Vikings. And I'm happy for the Broncos. Listen, Peyton Manning was my favorite quarterback. I mean, but like when he was playing, I'm a Colts fan. I love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is my favorite quarterback, got me into football. And when he went to Denver, I was still a Colts fan, but I was watching I watched every single Denver Broncos game just to see my favorite quarterback play. So I have a little, special place in my heart for the Broncos. That's just to let you guys know where I'm coming from. I mean, it's clear that the Denver Broncos got better. I mean, when you go from like week 4 of this season or like week 3 when they got 70 put on their head, they lost by 50, or they lost to Zach Wilson. Like if you go from like week 4, week 5, all the way back to the start of last season, the Broncos were one of the worst teams in the league. Now today, you feel a lot comfortable as a Broncos fan. You're a decent team. You're decently competitive. So everyone today is praising the Broncos, praising Sean Payton, praising Russell Wilson for this turnaround. But I got to ask something. How much better did this Broncos offense really get? Everyone's praising Russell Wilson, Sean Payton for like this team's turnaround. How much better this offense really get? Do we see a team that's really found an offensive formula to win games? Has this Denver Broncos team really found a good offensive formula to start winning games and push for a playoff? Or is this a Denver Broncos team that's kind of on a insanity run of turnovers and is playing in a way that isn't sustainable? To me, I see a Denver Broncos team that is just overly dependent on turnovers during this 4-game winning streak. And that's why they've been winning. Yes, Russ has improved. I mean, last year he was horrible. People were calling him for being washed. I had a podcast saying, don't let Russ cook ever again. But let's not act like Russ isn't closer to being a game manager than he is to a star that he was in Seattle. Offensively, this team still stinks on third down and in the red zone. They stink in those areas. They only put points on the board. Like the Denver Broncos only put points on the board because the defense puts them in plus territory that if they didn't force turnovers, the Denver Broncos offense wouldn't have been there on a normal drive. Like, I'm curious to how many scoring drives in their winning streak does the Broncos have over 75 yards? Like against the Bills, they started every game at midfield, every possession. They forced so many turnovers against the Bills. The Bills were just begging to give the Broncos the game. That's why the Broncos won. Not because, like, they only scored one touchdown, I believe, in that game. It was mostly Will Lusk field goals. It's not because Sean Payton had this offensive revolution. It's not because Russell Wilson is not washed anymore. I mean, Sean Payton's decent. Is a good coach. Russell Wilson's back to being decent. But the Bills gave the Broncos the game. I mean, when you let your opponent start at midfield every possession, sooner or later they're going to put points on the board, while you're also turning the ball over yourselves. I mean, they just won a game against Minnesota where they were 2 of 12 on third down and 1 in 5 in the red zone. If you were to tell me going into Sunday that a team would go 2 for 12 on third down and 1 in 5 in the red zone, I would tell you that team probably lost by 10 plus. Third down in the red zone is like the key to winning football games. You want 2 deciding factors in a football game. You got to be good on third down. You got to be good on the red zone. That's it. You just do. As the Kansas City Chiefs. The Philadelphia Eagles won because they were excellent on third down and excellent in the red zone in the second half. Tush push, run game, receivers down the field, Devontae Smith. That's why they won. The Chiefs, although they were excellent in third down in the red zone early in the game, second half, receivers dropping big passes on third down. Kelsey fumble in the red zone. That one lost the Chiefs the game was third down in the red zone second half. If you're crying out loud, the Broncos went 59 minutes without a touchdown. You can't win football games going 59 minutes without a touchdown. That's some Pittsburgh Steelers stuff. Like, that's some Jets stuff. Like, the Broncos right now remind me more of the Steelers and Jets than any other team, than like the Chiefs or the Ravens or pre-injured Bengals. It's just like how the Steelers and Jets win. It's just how they win games. Like the Jets, they're very turnover reliant as well. I mean, part of the reason why Zach Wilson still has his job is because he had close games against the Chiefs, beat on Monday Night Football the Bills, and beat the Eagles. For the Jets have like a semi-decent record, and Rodgers is like contemplating coming back. Who's telling the Jets the only reason why you beat the Bills, were close against the Chiefs, and beat the Eagles is because you forced like 8 turnovers combined in those 3 games. You don't force those turnovers, you lose because your offense wasn't doing squat. It's just like the Steelers. The Steelers beat the Browns early in the season, like week 2 on Monday Night Football. But then they just lost to the Browns without Nick Chubb, without Deshaun Watson. They still lost to the Browns on Sunday. Why? Because the difference between week 2 and week 11 was because the Steelers when the Steelers are week 2, they score like 2 defensive touchdowns. They forced like 4 turnovers. And they forced, I don't think, a single turnover. I think 1 interception by DTR. That's it. And it didn't put them in plus territory or scoring drives. So, like, this defense is clearly saving the Broncos offense. 17 points per game during the streak. That's great. I don't know how long that's going to last because although I do think they have talent in this defense, this is not a historic 17 points per game type defense. They forced 12 turnovers in their 4-game winning streak. Back-to-back first possession turnovers. Like, when are you ever going to do that again? They're starting games with leads because their defense is forcing first possession turnovers. You can't get that every Sunday. Like, this team hasn't scored more than 24 points during their winning streak. They're winning these low-scoring, like 20-19, 22-20 type games. They just won 21-20. Thanks to their defense forcing turnover after turnover. Like, of course, the Broncos, their first 9 possessions were field goal, punt, field. You know what I'm saying? All field goals, all punts. I mean, sooner or later, they were going to score touchdowns. Their defense kept giving them the ball and chances. Like, if this Broncos defense is not forcing an unheard amount of turnovers, then the Broncos stand no chance against 90% of the league. Like, although I do think the Broncos, again, if you look at them from about week 4 this year, going all the way back to last year, obviously they are better, because from that time span, they were one of the worst teams in the league. And I think today they're decently competitive. But I think they're kind of on this interception, fumble, insanity run that their defense is forcing, which is carrying this offense. Now, this defense, again, has some talent, ascertained. They got Justice Simmons. They got guys on this defense. I'm not denying that. But the defense is just giving them chance after chance. Sooner or later, of course, Russell Wilson's going to put the ball in the end zone and put points on the board. If your defense is just going to give the ball the 50-yard line every game. I'm happy for the Broncos, though. I don't want to sound like I'm not happy for the Broncos. I don't like when teams are 0-16. I don't like when teams are losing every game. I like when more of the league is competitive. They beat the Chiefs and the Bills. I like when you don't get the Chiefs and the Broncos game for the Chiefs and the Bills probably looked like a bye week. If they were to look at their schedule in week 3 after that Miami Dolphins game, the Chiefs and Bills probably saw the Broncos as a bye week late in the season. I like when teams are more competitive, but I think we kind of need to pump the brakes a little bit on the Denver Broncos. This team might not be as competitive we think they are. I think their defense is on a bit of an insanity run when it comes to forcing turnovers. I mean, back-to-back turnovers on first possessions. You're not going to get that every Sunday. You got to win games. Most Sundays, you got to be from behind. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jets, like I said, they're just like the Broncos, for where they can win these games against some of these big teams and they force a lot of turnovers. Your defense, if you just have a solid game-managing quarterback who can just put enough points on the board, you can win a decent amount of games in the regular season. It's not going to win you postseason games, but it can win you a decent amount of games in the regular season. What we've been seeing, what we saw over the weekend from the Jets, from the Steelers, is that when their defense isn't forcing 3 turnovers, isn't putting the offense in plus territory, they lose. And I think we're going to see that from the Denver Broncos sooner or later. It's although Russ is better than what he was last year, he's still a game manager quarterback. This offense, although Sutton is on a nice touchdown streak, this offense still isn't insanely talented. I don't think this offense is still not that good. Yes, is this offense back? Sure, but they were 2-12 on third down. You know what I mean? So we're going to see in a week or so when Denver Broncos kind of come back to reality a little bit, because their defense isn't going to force 5 turnovers a game and put the offense on their opponent 30-yard line and just literally just hand them a free 3 points. But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you. Some Casual Takes, episode 78. We're on break. I'm going to try to focus up and provide you guys some more content. It's just good practice for me anyways when I do this. Follow social media to stay updated. Some Casual Takes, everything on all handles. That's where you can find me. And we'll see you guys.